On today's episode of the Wild Party Podcast, I chat with Alyssa O'Toole, founder of Musicians Playground, a wellness focused music community in Boston that helps adults and kids connect with their creativity through music. Alyssa shares her inspiring journey from teaching piano lessons while living in a storage unit to building a thriving business that empowers beginners, supports personal transformation, and brings office teams together through music-based team building. Our conversation dives into entrepreneurship, wellness, and why making music is one of the most powerful tools for connection. Plus, we even chat about my childhood dream of becoming a drummer in a rock band. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the Wild Party Podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stefanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. Today's guest is someone who took a bold, soulful leap and turned it into a movement. Alyssa O'Toole is the founder of Musicians Playground, a one-of-a-kind gym for musicians based in Boston. But this isn't your average music school. It is a vibrant, wellness-focused community where adult learners rediscover their creativity, connect with others, and even rock out together in corporate team-building events like Battle of the Bands, which, by the way, I would sign up for immediately as a drummer. Alyssa, welcome to the Wild Party. I'm so excited to dig into your story and your mission.
It's so great to be here, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. So, as I just shared in our little pre-conversation, this is a personal, I think, thing for me that I really wanted you on the show because I'm going to tell you I'm a bit of a frustrated musician myself, and here is why. And you're going to understand this, which is why I love your mission so much. When I was in grade school, they came around to our classrooms. I went to a private Catholic academy, and we're like, oh, now it's time for you to sign up to be involved in one of the music groups. Okay. So they had like a list of instruments you could sign up for. And I will say the class was pretty evenly split between men and women. It was grade school. So we'll just say males and females. We were kids, right? And all of the boys signed up for drums and all of the girls signed up for flutes. Okay. And I'm sitting there, and if you met me in person, you would understand why this is so funny. I'm a very tiny person, as I was as a child, and I really wanted to play drums. I wanted to be with the drummers so bad, and it was all boys. But I raised my little hand and I signed up for the drum side, and then I was very nervous, and I think literally I might have stuck with it through 5 lessons, and then I quit because I was so intimidated. And to this day, Alyssa, there is a drummer inside of me waiting to get out.
Yes, yes, I
So
love
that
that.
is my personal story. Why, when I learned about you, I said, I need you on the show because I want other adults to be able to get that little musician out of them that they were too fearful as a little child to do. So at some point we will meet and I will join your band as a drummer. Okay, Alyssa, let's get into
Yeah.
your story now. You were a piano teacher giving private lessons, and then you decided, you know what? There's a lot of frustrated adults out there, and I'm going to help them to, reawaken their creativity. How
Yeah.
did all that happen? Tell me where that came from, girl.
Yes, first of all, I just want to say congratulations for diverting from societal norms and opting for the drums. I love that. And it probably speaks to the creative that you've become today as well, and kind of this mission you're on to share people's stories. And I would say, for me, I always have been a bit of a rebel myself. Music has been my North Star, something that I've absolutely loved from the time I was little. And piano was my preferred instrument, my preferred sound. And I really wanted to take this love and find a way to help others to experience firsthand its benefits and the profound impact that it has. And so that's where I started building a private clientele, traveling to people's homes. But just like you said, that's when I started to realize, there's not been one adult, one person universally that I've ever spoken to who's asked me, what do you do? And when I tell them I'm a pianist, who hasn't been excited about it, hasn't said, I love music, right? Or hasn't said that they wanted to do it forever and haven't gotten the chance. So I was finding there was these statements I was hearing all the time, and this was also in the wake of this blossoming wellness movement. And everybody's focus was so much on the physical body, drinking the green smoothies and going to the gym. But what I started to notice is that music can be a fantastic tool within the wellness space for people to take care of themselves, and specifically I call it their souls, right? Their creative expression, their emotional wellness. And so that's when I started to set out to build Musicians Playground as it is today, specifically focusing on adult music hobbyists who are wanting to make music for fun, to connect with others in the community, and ultimately to personally transform themselves as they would through any sort of other wellness modality.
I mean, listen, you are speaking my language. First of all, I wish that this was happening in LA. So please tell me you're expanding. Because here's what else was. So, I told you, like, it's the little drummer girl that didn't happen, even though I really wanted to, but music didn't leave me. In fact, the reason I moved to LA was to get into the music business because I got very, very involved in the rock and roll scene when I was living in Philadelphia. And I wanted to move to LA to get into A&R to help develop these bands, right? So
Wow.
the music was always in me. I was like, I just want to be around that creativity. And I am the girl now that if you see me and you're in the car next to me, I'm the one bobbing my head and singing along and like, music moves me. So I understand where that's coming from, when you're saying like it reawakens people's creativity. Because if there's a song playing, I'm singing and I am not a good singer girl, not at all. But to this day, like, I didn't even tell you, I also go to morning raves, okay? And I'm the girl like sitting next to the speaker. I know it's a whole other story. But again, not about me. Back to you. What I want to say with all of my rambling here is music does excite us so much. Like, I'm just sitting here gushing. Tell me, what is it? Because you've studied music your whole life. What is it internally that connects with us on that spiritual level that makes people so bonded like we are now, just talking about music, not even listening to it at this point?
Yeah. Well, there's so many great bodies of work, and I wouldn't be scientifically the best to speak to those bodies of work as the actual authors themselves. But I mean, there's like your brain on music, or there's these other kind of scientific works that we could look at and go really deep into the theory and the research behind why music scientifically moves us. I would say, though, on a broader, more accessible level, that music always is something that we can use to tell a story or to feel our own life experience through another, I guess, through another story. And, between the types of sounds we can choose or hear and how we could craft the words, right, as we're writing songs or listening to songs, I think that it's a way that we can just get in touch with being a human, being alive, having this life experience, and to understand it in a way that words can't necessarily do justice, right? We can journal, we can meditate, we can do a lot of things, but I feel like putting it to sound, putting it to a song is a whole different story. And I think there's, that aspect of it when it comes to composing, songwriting, listening to pieces that other people have written and how that resonates with us. I mean, there's also the idea of when we're actually making the music and what it means to be social as we're making the music. We're listening to others, we're collaborating with others. It's very much a social experience, a connecting experience. I feel like it maybe leaves us a bit more unified in terms of a community at the end of the day. So there's just so many beautiful benefits to music. And I think, everybody kind of has to find their interest within that sphere. Like for you, I mean, you dove into the drums and you were attracted to that frequency or to those sounds and that maybe role within a band setting. I mean, for all of us, it can be different. I particularly love the piano, and I composed from a very young age. I really liked making my own things up because for me, it was this way of, like I said, expressing the things that I didn't have the words for yet as a young person. And then growing into the person that I am today, it's consistently been that friend for me. I mean, for others, it's writing songs, it's singing. I mean, it can be a lot of things for us, but I think the versatility, the way it connects us to others, the actual physical experience of the vibrations and the frequencies and what that does to our brain, to our bodies, to ourselves, all of it is so impactful in a way that I don't think any other modality can be.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And like I said, for me, it's the vibrations. Like I'm literally, if I go to a rave, I'm laying on the speaker. I'm that girl. I will let you know, I do wear earplugs. I'm not that crazy,
Good.
but I love the vibration and I've always loved that. And I think people also respond to like vibrations on a piano too, because piano actually gives a lot of vibrations. I've seen people lean against it as people are playing. So when you were growing up then, who first introduced you to the piano? How did you first get exposed to it and then start taking lessons?
Yeah, so there was my grandfather's piano in my childhood home. He was the player of the family. My parents were not. And so in that way, I was kind of an odd duck. And we came home from a cousin's wedding, and I had put together the wedding march from start to finish by just ear. And I always laugh because my parents were more of like a sports family. They really enjoyed their Sunday football days. And I would spend all Sunday in that piano room just trying to figure out, putting together songs that I heard on the radio or songs that I heard out in my life. And my mom came in one day after hearing me play the wedding march and said, "Are you taking piano in school?" I said, "No." And she's like, "How did you know how to do that?" And I was like, "I just figured it out." And so I always had an innate kind of love as well as ear for it. And I think my mom caught on that I needed some lessons. So she asked, "Hey, would you like some lessons?" So she put me in a local, very kind of casual school in my area, which was upstate New York, Utica, New York. And it was within 1 year, I was trying to write my own songs. And I was really aggressive in the way that I was working with the piano. And my teachers and the owner of that studio came up to my mom and said, "You really need to put her with somebody serious." And so at the age of 9, I auditioned to work with somebody who was fairly serious in my area. And she classically trained me very hard for the next like decade, until off I went to college and studied with faculty at the colleges that I've gone to. But it was really my choice from the very beginning, and I am so gracious that my mom, my dad had the means and the interest of supporting me and pursuing that experience.
That is amazing to have that kind of support, especially like you said, you came from a very sporty family, so it wasn't something that they were naturally going to be like, "Oh yes, go after piano."
Right.
Um, yeah, and it is funny in my family. Well, my family has really become a much more sporty family now, but even back then, there wasn't a ton of push for musical. Like I said, we were offered these classes in grade school, and I think my sisters both went after violin, which was funny.
Wow, that's
I
tough.
know. And then here's me, little drummer girl, tiny girl, just wanting to bang on drums. But so when you started, so you were playing piano, and then, as you move into your adult life, you started actually giving lessons and things like that. How did you then transfer this into, I'm going to make this a business? Because let me tell you, I've seen tons of people who try to do the I'm going to give musical lessons route, and they don't know how to make it a business, and they
Yeah.
can't make a living off it. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the fear for a lot of people with anything creative based. Like, how do I make money from it? But you've done that. So, what is the secret sauce there that you were like, I'm going to turn this into a business? How did that all start for you?
Yes. Well, I will say that that is a very true challenge. And I think it's one that we have to consider carefully, because when we choose to make our creative passion our profession, it does change the relationship with it a bit. My music, ultimately, my relationship with music has transformed through the years. And I do feel that now, at the stage I'm at in my life and in my business, that entrepreneurship has become my form of creativity more so than even my connection with the piano anymore. But to answer your question, a lot of perseverance, a lot of self studying in terms of how to continuously level myself up as a business owner and as a business with my acumen in terms of running a business. And, it all started from very humble beginnings. I was, as much as I had that support and the means for my parents to take the lessons, I was not completely happy with my home environment, and I definitely didn't want to go to work for corporate America. I had a business degree. I graduated early. I was so just kind of unhappy. And I knew I needed to figure out a path that felt more authentic to me just because of the level of unhappiness I was experiencing in my early, I was freshly 20 when I graduated college. So in the abyss, in that void of freshly graduating and figuring out what do I do with myself, and knowing that, staying in my home environment was not an option. I was like, okay, I'm going to follow what I love, which is music. So that's when I moved to Boston. And I tried to apply for some music schools here, thinking I needed a degree to be successful, which that's the first thing I want to flag on this podcast is that anybody listening, you do not need a degree. I'm a big advocate of just putting pieces together, getting to the heart of what you're needing to do, what you need to do without spending money if you can, or spending as little money as possible. But at this time I didn't get accepted. And so I said, okay, I love to teach. I love people. And that's the other part of this, Stefanie. It's really important. Is like, we are multidimensional humans. And I think, the more we can put together our strengths into, this whole pie that we call business, I think the more successful we're going to be. For me, I had an innate talent, not only for playing, but for teaching and for working with people. And I genuinely loved seeing people reach their fullest potential, light up when they came into contact with something that was transformational like music. So to facilitate that for others and use my skill sets, my strengths as a person, such as my compassion, my patience, my kindness, all of this came together in the perfect storm for, setting me up to do very well at running a business, specifically sales and marketing, my hunger for learning and for wanting to just know how to do it. And then also the boldness for just doing it, even if I didn't have all the information. So imperative, not only like then, but also now, every single step I continue to take to grow this business. And then that's where the dream and the imagination came in. I'd say that was a huge reason for also the growth is even though I was sleeping in a storage unit in the first years of making this business work, living within my means and really focusing all of my efforts and energy on building the business, I still stayed steadfastly connected to that ultimate dream. So even though I was sleeping in a 3 foot, little area, I didn't feel that I was, because I was so much in contact with what I was working toward. And I think that's another thing that's very tricky is you have to have a really rich imagination to stay engaged with your own dreams, because there's going to be a lot of years, a lot of steps that we take between where we're at now and where we're going before we arrive. And you have to continue to believe and have faith and the fact that you're going to arrive, and not, take your current reality for what's going to be the forever reality, right? So I think that's very difficult. A lot of people give up because the future doesn't feel within reach, or it feels unclear or too far away. They hit a rough spot or two and they give up. And I think that's the biggest reason people don't succeed is they don't find a way to take one more step. And so that would be what I'd say I'm especially good at, is continuing to take a step, even if I don't know what I'm doing, where I'm going, or if I can even do it.
Yeah, and especially if you're the one that's just creating the path. I mean, you weren't following anyone. And it's funny you mentioned the sleeping in the storage space because I did read that story about you and I thought, girl, she knows how to be uncomfortable to follow her dreams. Hence, tying very, closely to what I felt when I moved to LA. Like I had no plan when I moved out here. I just wanted to follow the music. I just wanted to be around the bands, right? Because listen, I'm going to tell you right now, it was the early 90s. Rock and roll was still a thing. And YouTube was not the way we discovered music. Okay. This was still like a very closed environment, but I was going to be the one to discover the next big band. So I thought. Anyway, so you are giving lessons and then you decide, I'm going to make this a bigger business. There is a big leap then to decide, I'm going to open a space. Did you already have an idea in your head what that offering would look like, what that space like? Did you have an idea like, I want it to be this creative space where people can come and learn and then collaborate? Or were you thinking more like, it's going to be a traditional music school? Or did you like, what was your idea when you were trying to first launch what would then become Musicians Playground?
Yeah. So, to be clear, I started by traveling to people's homes. Most of my clients were kids for the first, like I'd say, few years of doing this. The next logical step was I brought them to a place that was a live work unit that I ultimately transformed to just work and sleeping in the storage. And that was like an 800 square foot live work space. The reason I'm saying this is because I want people to know I didn't just like snap my fingers and land in the very beautiful downtown location that we're in right now. It took a lot of years, a lot of steps. And then from there, I upgraded a couple more times within that same building, again, sleeping in a walk in closet. So, probably for 4 years, it was a walk in closet and storage for my sleeping quarters. Until finally that third space, I was able to get my own space and then ultimately bridge the gap to where we are now, which is this beautiful 3,000 square foot facility in downtown Boston. And so, in order to do that, I had to build one client at a time. In fact, we didn't do paid marketing as a business until 2019, which we were already in that $10,000 space per month at that point. That's when I had to get really serious to start to figure out how to make this business work, because I had committed myself to a huge overhead and didn't have anything in place to support doing that. But I knew I would rise to the occasion, because that's just what I do. I bet on myself like that. So it was all these years of just gradually building the business, expanding, making critical choices. For example, confronting my fear of letting go of control and hiring and delegating and allowing other people to join me in my mission. That was really hard for me as a person. And so hiring other people, developing a staff, expanding to different instruments, these all were like, I'd say, blips on a timeline spanning a decade, right? And each one requires more and more bravery, more and more openness, more and more challenging of the things that are my own limiting beliefs. And it was interesting because in the blossoming of this business, I'd say, Stefanie, there was also this beautiful blossoming of me as a person. It's really been the best tool for my own growth and for my own evolution as a human, because it's made me come into touch with, choices that if I want to stay stuck, my business will too. But if I ultimately want to challenge why I'm stuck, then my business will get unstuck, and so will I. So I think there's this beautiful reciprocity in being our own business owners and taking each step of that journey, not skipping our evolution.
You put that so beautifully, because it's totally true. Whatever the creative journey is going to be, in business, it is about taking that next step and then, facing your fears. And honestly, from all of the business owners that I've ever talked to, it seems like that the biggest fear seems to be in the beginning is to hire someone else, because then you're accountable to someone else. And suddenly you're like, oh, I really have to do the work every day because now I have to pay someone. Where before, a lot of people will sit there, and especially in this online age where everybody can just throw up like a Shopify store and be like, I have a business. It's like, but have you hired anyone? Are you accountable to anyone for a payroll? And I found, even for me, for business wise, when I hired my first assistant, because I started in social media marketing. When I hired my first social media marketer, that was suddenly, I'm like, oh, I got to make sure the pipeline of clients is really coming, because I have to pay this person. And not only that, I wanted to pay them because I really liked them and I didn't
Yes.
want to let them down. And that accountability kind of really held me to the grindstone more than anything else, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's something I think is a lot of people, they're so afraid of like having that accountability, they don't hire people and they stay stuck because, like you just said, if you don't take that next level of letting go a little bit, you're never going to grow beyond the solopreneur kind of thing. So your space now, you said, is what we call the playground. And it has been like over a decade in the building. Tell me what goes on there now.
Yes. And I realize I missed a critical part of your last question too, which is, you said, like, how has it become what it is? I had a passion for athletics, and this is going to tie into answering this question, I promise. But I had a passion for athletics, and I would go to the gym and work out. And that was like when it dawned on me, why are there not musical workouts? Like, why can't we have a facility that's just like a gym where people go and work out? But they do that musically speaking. And so that's what was the fire behind then the creation of the current model. And to what you just asked, what happens in there? So I'm really proud to say that now we have over 100 group classes a month in piano, voice, and guitar for our members to drop into. Again, only adult hobbyists are what we serve at this point. And our couple hundred members can join any of those as they wish with their memberships. They can come use our facility to practice, and we have amazing, beautiful instruments for them to stop by after work. and maybe jam a little, just enjoy themselves, or they can take one-on-one lessons with our amazing instructors who've been specifically trained and developed to work really well with adult hobbyists. So at any given point, you may, Stefanie, coming into Musicians Playground, see all of that happening, like at this beautiful cacophony of private lessons, group classes, some people practicing jamming. Or if you see us on a Friday night, on the night and the months that we run our special events, you might be catching a huge happy hour performance, which features a lot of our staff and members and what they're up to, and a big party. So you might even catch a big party going on in the space as well. But you're going to see a lot of music making, a lot of people connecting, having fun, and generally just letting the steam off from the day through making some music.
That sounds amazing and super fun. But here is what people are probably thinking right now. They're like, I would love to go and watch, but I don't know how to play an instrument. So I'll sit on the sidelines. So please talk to the people now that have that little inner child inside of them that didn't want to take flute either, but they really want to play a different instrument.
Yeah.
What would they like? What's the, I guess, the experience level that would be appropriate for the space? Could somebody just walk off the street, no musical background, and be like, I'd like to start taking piano lessons? Would they feel comfortable there? I mean, get these
Yeah.
people comfortable to walk in that door, Alyssa.
You're so right. I mean, this is actually the main objection we face when we're pitching our team building events, because a lot of people are mortified in the corporate world to like try something new in front of their colleagues, first of all. And many of them are very focused professionally and with family, but maybe have lost kind of touch with their creative self. And so, as a fellow creative, it's very vulnerable to be creative in front of others, especially in the beginning stages of our exploration. I would say Musicians Playground, because of who I am, which is I have a special place in my heart for beginners, for people who are just starting, for that vulnerability, that understanding of that. That means that I created this super safe and supportive space for specifically people who are just starting out and beginners. We're like the best place for that. And we hire specifically for people who are great with beginners. I'd say most of our people are between beginners to up into and through late intermediate players. Once they get into like super advanced, they should be okay to do other very serious programs at local universities like Berkeley or New England Conservatory. But my goal was to fill that gap for the majority, because the reality is, Stefanie, most of us are beginners in music at this point. It's like, it's very rare you'll see somebody who comes in, plays very well as an adult, who has a lot of things going on in their life and isn't a professional musician. So I think people don't understand that they're amongst the majority, and that there just needs to be a space where they're welcome. And that's Musicians Playground. So I'd say that's my first part of the answer to that. But the second part is, I, as a teacher, as an educator, have been absolutely fascinated by that very question, which is, how quickly can someone learn and play? How quickly can we get them to engage and become a musician? Does it really need to take years and years for someone to feel that way? And the answer is no. So as a test, I did a social test where I flew out to some major cities across the US and had Yamaha sponsor me by placing a piano in the middle of these cities. And then a video crew flew out with me, and I had them video me teaching people throughout the day, 4 hours of teaching, 15-minute slots, different sections of songs. And then I had an editor place the hands of all these players together to create the whole song. What was fascinating is I only had 15 minutes to work with these people, and within 15 minutes had them playing some pretty cool things. So to me, what has happened over the years is I've slowly broken down the barriers to reaching someone, showing them it's possible for them to learn and play right away. And then I've been able to pass that on to my staff to make the learning much more efficient, much more direct, so that people have that sense of instant fulfillment. And it's kind of like saying, why can't I dance? We all can dance. It's innate, right? It's just, we have to have a chance to do it in a way that's supported and guided well. So I'd say to anybody listening who's music curious, thinking, I love to listen, but oh, no, I better not sing, or I better not try or play myself. Do it. Just try. I think you'll be amazed. As long as you're in the hands of someone who's really good with beginners, you'll be amazed at the results that you can accomplish even within a session.
That is so absolutely true. In fact, I was going to bring up the paralyzing P word, but you already covered it, which is practice. And that's what people think. They think, oh, I'll never be as good as, like, I don't know, whatever big musicians out there, because, or I'm really going to date myself. I will never be able to play guitar like Slash of Guns N' Roses, because He's played his entire lifetime. And yes, he was one of those kids that literally practiced more than, he did anything else. But you also don't have to get to that level. Like you can get to a certain enjoyment level. And I think that's where what holds people back. Everybody wants to be perfect. I
Yes.
have to be perfect. I have to be able to sit down on a piano and play a Mozart concerto from beginning to end with no mistakes. Otherwise, I am a failure. And they
Yeah.
won't let themselves have that play of just like you said, play a little part or learn a little bit or just find the joy in being able to just do chopsticks on the piano, right? Because we all like, nope, I have to be perfect because I'm performing because I'm being judged, right?
Right. And that's, I mean, it's so cool because it totally aligns what you're saying with the growth mindset, right? By Carol Dweck and how we engage with things that are new. And it's like, this is music is a great modality for practicing. If we know that about ourselves, we're perfectionistic. We often feel embarrassed about just starting out or beginning anything. This can be a great way to try to overcome that strategically. Because guess what? That's not just music is not the only place that tendency is limiting us. I'm sure that those same qualities show up in our workplace and our relationships and are transferable to every aspect of our life and who we show up as in those aspects of our life. So to know that, hey, I feel this way when it comes to music, I would say, how is that serving us? And if it's not, try something that's so scary like music to try to work on that because that'll ultimately free us up to show up who we want to show up as in the other areas of our life as well.
Yeah, and what's so great about this whole journey with you, and because I have done my research on you, it wasn't just enough for you to start this business and be successful. You're also like, I'm going to help other people in the creative industry build their own business. Because, like you said, you're good at putting systems into place. And clearly, because you're very good at piano, you're good at following through the practice. So, talk to me a little bit about how you are working with other people that want to start a creative business. Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I started about 5 years ago with consulting, and it's been so incredible. I've had the chance of helping close to 100 studios around the world. And with this being said, most of them have been creative arts centered. So brick and mortar service based businesses. Some of them are people who were starting from scratch. Maybe they were straddling a 9 to 5 or a public school teaching position or something that they loathed and they just wanted to go out on their own, but weren't sure how to make that leap. Some of them already had studios in place, but were just feeling so burnt out and at their wits' end, wanting to give up with it because they weren't optimally run or set up. And then there's others who are, well on their way, who are looking to just get past some of these really big hurdles. I mean, there's different hurdles at different revenue marks in my experience with various brick and mortar businesses, and especially within service-based businesses. So it's been a pleasure because through the past 5 years, I do a mixture of working in groups and one-on-one sessions with studio owners around the world, helping them ultimately to, yes, make more income. But what really brings me happiness and fulfillment is seeing the person across the screen from me become more confident, more joyful, more spacious, and ultimately more fulfilled by what they're doing every day. And to maybe save a few more creative professionals in this world from this awful state of perpetual burnout that a lot of us live in as entrepreneurs. So yeah, the teaching is a through thread. I love working with others, coaching, again, that bringing that same value of helping others, serving my collective, seeing people succeed. Now I'm just not doing it with the piano and with some notes on a page. I'm doing it with real business, with real lives, with larger communities through consulting.
Yeah, and because you actually understand the power of music and how it can transform both mind and body, I can see how that would be such a great thing for you to be involved with because clearly, we're not all meant to do the 9 to 5, but we do have to make money in this world to make a living. And it's always like, well, how do I do that? And something that I truly love. And I can see just in your face talking to you how much you love this and how this just lights you up. And It's funny, you guys, because if you're watching the video on YouTube, you'll see me smiling more and more because Alyssa has that aura about her where you're just like, yeah, 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 yeah. Like I'm just so excited. I just want to go and dig out
Oh,
my drum set in my parents' garage somewhere. No, I'm sure that's long
yes.
gone. But I found other ways to be creative. Like I said, I am my own DJ, like in the car, so I've got that going for me. But business in itself, and I'm glad you had the business degree. You mentioned that. Where did you get your degree from?
So I went to Ithaca College back in, I'm going to date myself, 2007 to 2010. However, I will tell all the listeners, I learned nothing about what I'm doing other than how to do homework in the most timely and efficient way. But that is it. So I feel like entrepreneurship is the best studying for entrepreneurship is just doing the business, learning on the go, getting help from somebody who's done what you're looking to do. That is so critical. There are so many, and you know this too, Stefanie, like there's so many people in this market. It's a loud market right now. There's a lot of people that are like, do this flash, kind of flashy object or thing and succeed. But looking behind the curtains, that person hasn't even done what they're professing about. So it's really important in this era of like information overload to make sure that whether it's a person that publicly has consulting services or not, or coaching services, ask them, look at who has accomplished what you're trying to do, and just send them a note and say, hey, I want to pay for your time and your help and your mentorship. That can really be the best business school you could ever invest in.
That is so true because that is, I mean, the digital marketing space right now is overwhelmed with that kind of, let's say, easy button. I say easy button business that people pitch. Like you just buy this one course and then you just copy all my templates and you have a digital marketing agency overnight.
Yes.
I hear that all the time. And I've had people come to me like, why aren't you creating courses? Why aren't you doing this and that? And I'm like, because it's not that easy. Like even with even with AI, and we know it's doing a lot, I use it myself, you still have to have a knowledge of what is the actual, I think, core offering,
Yes.
and what does that mean? Because if you're just like, I'm just going to copy and paste because I just want to make money, it's never going to be a business. It's always going to be like, I might make a couple dollars, but you have to have the passion because like you said, there's a lot of work.
Yes.
There is practice in there, there's a lot of groundwork. There is some sleeping in storage spaces maybe. And it's not all grind, but it can't be faked in the way I think a lot of people want to try and do, especially now because like you said, online people try to make it look very easy. So, with that said, you've had some challenges, you've had some successes. Give me one challenge that looking back you wish you would have learned sooner, and then give me one success that lights you up as you think about it even to this day.
Okay, yeah, these are great questions. I think one of the biggest things that I have learned, and it's been more recent that I've learned this, is to not personalize things that are outside of my control. I think I've been somebody as a woman, as a business owner, and probably a lot of female entrepreneurs can understand this sense of over responsibility, the sense of um, it's my fault always, right? And like looking at, for example, seasonality. I just led a workshop for a bunch of music studio owners who were all very concerned over their summer numbers. And the reality is, summer is going to be a down season, but the past me would have held on to that as, oh, the numbers going down mean I'm a bad business owner, mean I'm not up to this challenge, mean that I don't deserve to keep doing this, right? And this is just one example of many. Somebody quitting my business. I'm not a good manager. My mission, it doesn't matter, isn't valuable to others. There's these kind of sweeping assumptions or ways we can personalize things that are happening in our world, whether professionally or personally, that either add more weight to our shoulders or make us lighter. And I think what I've learned is when I step back and see what I call now with my coaching clients, things that are gravity issues, like we can't change gravity. We have to work with it, right? And so I love now that the current version of me doesn't personalize everything. If someone leaves my business, good. I hope that they enjoy where they're going next. And that doesn't mean I'm a bad business owner or that my workplace is a bad workplace, right? Or if our numbers drop in a certain season, it doesn't mean that that's fatalistic and my business is going to fail. It just means that maybe that's a down time and we can come up with solutions around that and work with that reality, not against it. So I think working with reality or embracing things for, what they are, aka gravity issues, and not making that about me has been, or separating myself from the business's reflection has been really, really important for me to act a lot more lightly and a lot more swiftly and a lot more confidently and boldly. That's a big learning. The last one I'd say is just that I can't please everyone. And I think that for a long time, I tried to hold on to this impossibility, which is I'm going to make everybody happy. Everyone's always going to love what I have to say or what I do. Right. And then I carry around so much, anxious energy around, what others are receiving as a result of what I'm putting out there. And as I've evolved as a leader, I've realized like more and more, because it becomes more and more frequent that I'm faced with people that have problems with my thoughts or what I do or how I think, right? They don't always agree. And I realized, aha, I'm actually onto something here, because this probably means I'm being more authentic, more creative, and ultimately the biggest expression of myself. And I've come to really enjoy that sense of being myself and also welcoming that disagreement as a good thing. Whereas before, I would probably try to run away from it a bit more or avoid it, not confront it head on. So I think those are probably the two things that have been most challenging for me to shed. But now that I have, I feel better as a business person and person in general. Success. I think the biggest success I am most proud of, and I thank my lucky stars that this went the way it did, was when in 2018 I was faced with an eviction in one of our spaces because we had outgrown this live work environment, and they told me I needed to shut my business down in a couple of months. And so I was faced with like, holy moly, what do I do here? I have this like community of about 100 members. I have a team of teachers that are working for me. Like my business shutting down would be fatal for it. So I had a whole year to mobilize to find us the place that we're in currently and to raise a ton of, I was a ton of money to me. It was, a lot of money, more than I had. So I took on debt. I even went as far as, against the advice of my mentor, signing a lease that was guaranteeing 4 times the amount that we were paying at our previous space. And I had no business plan, no business acumen, no KPIs, no tracking, nothing. I couldn't tell you how much we were making, how much we were spending, how many clients we had. I signed it. And my mentor said, what are you doing? Oh my God. And started sending me contingency plans. Okay, if you can do this or this to get yourself out of this. And I stuck with it. So for all of 2019, I will say I had much more gray hair in my head after this year happened. But I worked so hard to become the business person that I needed to be to rise to that occasion. And ultimately was able to grow to a place where we were able to stabilize our revenue, pay back a lot of the debt, push back some of the debt that we had to pay. Obviously, then COVID happened, which is a whole nother challenge. And that was very scary. But the fact that I took this huge leap of moving into our dream space and finally launching all the dream programs as what Musicians Playground is today, but without having a clear path forward, that is something I'm so, so happy about. And I feel very proud of succeeding at.
Okay, first of all, I'm just going to say this. Where were you 20 years ago, girl? You could have saved me a lot of heartache and a lot of suffering myself. I feel like you've learned lessons so much quicker than I, because we already like did the age game here. I know you're a lot younger than me. First of all, I'm very proud of you for learning all that early on, because it took me 50 years to be comfortable, I swear to God, as a business owner. Before I was just like, look, I'm just going to put it out there. In fact, I had the idea for this podcast way, way before I ever launched it. So I'm glad that you're following your dreams. And not only that, but you're helping people to explore and develop and follow their own creative dreams, because that is so important. And along the way, making some really incredible music, which, like I said, I love. I'm still going to be a drummer. It's not over for me yet.
No, it isn't. And we'll come to LA. We plan to expand. So we're trying to ultimately, fingers crossed, we're trying to build toward our second location for next year. We'll be on the East Coast for a little bit, but the plan is to get out west. So I hope that we'll see you in LA.
I would really, really love that. I can't wait to hear about when you're expanding to LA, because LA, listen, LA is going to be a bit of a challenging market. You know that, because
Yeah.
we already got a lot of stuff going on around here. But I truly believe that there is so much room for growth and for helping people to expand their creativity. And I'll just let you know, I live in an apartment building with two people that are trying to get into the music industry. One is a vocal coach, and the other one is, I guess, like a songwriter. And God, do I love them here. I love to hear them creating music because it's
Well,
all just new. It's stuff that they're just doing, and it lights me up hearing them do that. So I can just imagine anywhere you go, the fact that music uplifts people, it's going to uplift everyone around you. So you can make it in LA, girl. I know you can. So you get out here. We will have coffee. We will talk about it. And with that said, Alyssa, please tell everyone where they can find you online and potentially how they could start working with you to build their own creative dreams.
Yes, absolutely. So, firstly, if they want to check out Musicians Playground and what that's all about, definitely check out Musicians Playground at www.musiciansplayground.com. If you want to get in touch with me, social media is awesome. If you're on Instagram, we can, I'm sure, include handle information. Send me a message, or you can shoot a contact form through the Musicians Playground website, and I'll be happy to support anybody reaching out.
That's so awesome. I'm sure you're going to hear from a lot of people. Like I said, we have a big creative audience, and you know what? Music just adds so much to anyone's life. So with that said, Alyssa, thank you so much for being on the show. You have lit me up. I'm
Oh,
remembering so much good stuff of just music and rock and roll and Guns N' Roses and all of that. So thank you for reminding me of how much fun I had.
oh my God, Stefanie, it's been an absolute blast. This has seriously been so much fun, and I love what you're creating. Thank you for, creating a space, a container for people to share their stories, and for hopefully so many people to be inspired. So thank you so much to you too.
Thanks for listening to the Wow Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.